Okay. All right. Welcome to Purpose Center Leadership Live. We have been off the live circuit on this page for the last 3 or 4 weeks due to vacation and just scheduling conflicts. So I'm happy to be back on our page again today. And today we're going to be talking about authentic leadership. So if you are logging in, you know the drill. Go ahead and put your name in the comments, or at least we'll have your name, but at least place your city or state or country that you're watching from. And we will give this about a minute or two to get us going. So if you're just logging in, put your name or your city and state that you're logging in from. See, I need my coffee today. All right. So we'll give you guys about a minute or two to get on the feed. Once I have 3 people on the feed, I will kick off our messaging. And I know we're broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So hello to all platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Hey, Angola from Facebook. Glad to have you here. Hey, Jennifer from Connecticut. Jennifer Sasha. Hey, Florida. Hey, Ian from Canada. Hey, John from Connecticut. Hey, UK user. Glad to have you guys here. I'm going to actually need you guys' help today because today I'm talking about authentic leadership. And I am going to ask you guys to put in the comments, right, some of the characteristics that you see in your leaders when they're being authentic. I am going to share my story of, authentic leadership, right, just from my own personal experience. But I also want to hear from you guys some of what you see out there in the marketplace when a leader is acting in an authentic space. So I had said if there were 2 people or 3 people on the feed, I would get started. So I think there's like 35 of you. So I'm going to get started. Thank you guys for joining me. I love doing these lives. I get to meet so many of you, and it just gives me a lot of energy. So today I'm going to talk about authenticity in leadership. About a week or two ago, I was asked to speak on this very topic at my alma mater in Florida, the Palm Beach Atlantic University, to speak on leading with authenticity as a woman in leadership. And at first I said, well, men need to be authentic too. But the feedback was yes, but they wanted a woman's perspective. So I'm going to jump right in. And I started my talk there with a story. And I'm going to give you a brief outline of the story. So it was, 2002 or so, or maybe 2004, dating myself. But I found myself in a boardroom, right, with an all-male board. And let me just say this. There's no male bashing here. My biggest supporters are male. My husband is my largest supporter, my hugest supporter, my ride or die. So I found myself though in a boardroom with an all-male board, and we were having a real challenge with a decision. Pretty much what had happened was that I had felt called to start a nonprofit agency. I had made this known to my pastor, who had a nonprofit agency, Shell, at the time. And we made a deal that I would back my vision into his nonprofit if I helped him with his idea. Now, his nonprofit was dormant for 4 years, so there was nothing going on. So, but for me, I wanted the Shell company. It allowed me to get to my vision quicker. And so we made an agreement. And so we started. So I began launching my vision and began helping him with his vision. And so after about a year and a half, as fate would have it, right, my vision was taking off really big. And so I was being asked in this board meeting to put my vision down and pursue his vision solely. And I was making the case that I really felt called to the vision that God had given me. I really felt called to, really helping those people in the community, getting beyond the walls of the church, so to speak, and getting into the community and helping people, whereby his vision was more of a it was a good vision too, but it's more about publishing books. And so we had this dialogue going on for 2 hours, and again, that pressure was there for me to really buckle or resign. And so right around the 2.5 hours, there was a shift in the atmosphere where one of the board members, who was at the time the major donor, said, "Look, these are two great visions, but I really feel myself being pulled towards the vision that Sharon has, right? Myself." And so that was quite a bit of a surprise, but the meeting began to shift towards my directions. Next, another board member agreed, and to make a long story short, they decided to override the chair and of the board and to pursue my vision, right? Because it was already bearing fruit. And the first point I want to make is that it is so easy, right? To let go of your authentic self. I could have, right? I could have embraced that vision, but then I knew I would have quit not long after because I would not be embracing what I really believe. And so the first point I want to make about authenticity in leadership is you have to be courageous. You have to own your truth. You have to know what you stand for. And Barbara says, you know, to an authentic leader is aligned with personal values. And someone else says, to be open-minded. Vulnerability, great words, guys, right? Compassion, transparency. And all these are character traits, right, of an authentic leader, right? Transparency. I spoke my truth that day. I was transparent with everyone on the board. I was like, look, I cannot embrace a vision I do not feel. Okay. I would be doing it for a short time, but it wouldn't be heart deep. And so I was willing to walk away at that moment, not because I wanted to be in protest, but I felt like this wasn't the real me. And so my vision was allowed to, to take root. And I will tell you that, 16 years later, right? I did that for like 16 years. The impact was beyond our wildest imagination, right? We were able to impact just thousands and thousands of lives and got people into a better place, emotionally, with their job, with their work, with their self-esteem, with food, with clothing, a whole bunch of stuff. And so authentic leadership is going to call for you to stand even against the crowd, right? To be courageous, to own your truth. And so many people in leadership compromise, right? They compromise their own truth and they compromise their values. John says, vulnerability. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you're being weak. It means that you're being open. And I sat there for 3 hours in that meeting, listening, making a case, being open and being willing to walk away because I strongly believe that there were fruit that was evidence from what I was doing and that this is what I was, called to do. And so I was able to then go forth into the community and really, again, embrace this vision. And what I noticed is that as I began working with people and continuing to lead in this authentic space, right? Having gotten the opportunity, and I consider it an opportunity to be supported, right? In what I believe. I didn't consider it a right. I guess it was a right, but I considered it at that time being a minority, on this board and being, again, the only female on this board. I considered it an opportunity and a privilege to go out there and lead with authenticity and continue to lead that way, right? And to make my values clear. So one of the first things I did, right, was as the company, as the organization I was leading was growing, I wanted to make sure that the people I attracted shared the same values as I do. They don't have to be the same. They just have to share similar values because authentic people are going to attract people. Actually, any leadership style, they're going to attract your kind. And so if you are on a mission, right, to be your authentic self, you want to encourage that with your followers, with your team as well. And so one of the things that I embraced was, integrity and authenticity and, and your, values. So I stated what my values were. And so I was able to begin to attract people who were really similarly aligned. And so what began to happen was I found that I was, through the work that I was doing, was multiplying other authentic leaders, right? I was the people who were working for me. We were people who were given the freedom, right, the autonomy to walk in their own truth as well, within the confines of the mission that we had. And so, as a leader, if you're a leader who promotes authenticity, I would also suggest that you encourage that in your up and coming leaders. And they may not always do things the way your style, but if you embrace authenticity as a leader, allow the people who you're mentoring and pulling up to operate in their authentic voice as well. And look, we can have a bank of leaders, right? All qualified, all good, all trained, but the way how leaders lead should really, this is my opinion, should really be based on their values. So I may value, for example, family, for example. So as an authentic leader, I am going to prioritize my family as well as the family members of my team. So if someone wants time off because of a family situation, as a leader who values family, my decisions are going to be based on my values. So yes, I may be more flexible with that. There are other leaders who value other things, right? They may value hard work, and I do too. But they're going to always want to push that hard work ethic, productivity ethic, with their team, and that's fine too. Because this is why I said it's so important to attract those people who are aligned with your values. Make your values clear so people are not surprised by what you believe. So authentic leaders should multiply other authentic leaders. This is what I believe in. This is what I see, and this is kind of what I do. Everyone has a different way and a different style at looking at things. And the beauty of being authentic is knowing what you're good at, knowing what you believe, knowing what you value, being open, being vulnerable, and sharing that with your team. I think I've shared a story on here in the past about Justin Khan, that guy from Twitch who had sold, Twitch and started another company. And he wanted to be a CEO. He felt like it was time for him to go to his next level and become the next great big CEO. And he got some funding, about $75 million worth of VC funding, and built a company. But the truth was the company did not survive. After 36 months, the money was lost because Justin admitted, the guy from Twitch, that he really was not a CEO material. He really was a content creator. So here he was operating outside of what he was really called to do, which was content creation, and trying to get into a role that wasn't his authentic voice, and really wasted a lot of investor money. And it's going to be the same thing. Caldwell said honesty. And Caldwell K, I would say the honesty should first begin with you, personal honesty. This is the reason why self-awareness is so important. Who are you? I was talking with some folks earlier, and on a consulting call, and I found that there was one particular individual who was, I believe, was projecting an image or projecting a story of what that person wants to be, but when challenged, it wasn't defendable. And that's the because that person was projecting a story. So my advice to that person was, listen, work in your authentic space, work in your authentic voice, because when you're authentic and you are asked questions, you can answer because you're answering from inside here. So you're first being honest with yourself. It's the same thing as John saying transparency. um, Again, being sure of who you are and being clear of who you are with your team. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments, about what I've said so far, and how are you, do you believe that if you're a leader on this call, do you believe that you are operating in your authentic style, your authentic voice, or do you believe you're either dumbing yourself down to please someone else, or you're hiding who you really are to please someone else, or are you in a role that you're not even suited for? And so I'd love to hear you guys thoughts in the comments on that. But the third thing I want to just leave you with today, and I won't go long today unless I get some questions, is again that very point. If you are in a leadership role currently and you are not having that job satisfaction, one of the reasons could be is one of the reasons could be that you are again operating as someone that you are not. Remember my first story when I said I was in a boardroom and I was being pressured to do something else, to pursue a different vision. I could have said yes. I could have said yes, but I knew that I wasn't going to be honest with myself. I wouldn't serve my people well, the people who would be following me well, because I didn't really have that internal buy-in, right? That internal confirmation. It wasn't there. And so my question to you as leaders is, are you currently operating authentically as a leader? Are you leading from a place of honesty and transparency and owning your own truth? Or are you fitting into a mold, to keep your job or to please someone else? I will tell you that if you're doing the latter, you will only scratch the surface of your leadership potential, because it's so much work to pretend to be something or someone that you are not. Barbara says, I agree that you have to continue to test yourself that you are being authentic and use others you trust to do so also. I agree. I agree. Ask people too, as Barbara says, ask others to tell you if they think that, you're showing up as they know who you're to be. I look at it this way, right? You should be the leader who is the same where you are at work, right? Is the same person you are at a happy hour, is the same person you are at home, right? And I'm not saying you should always be on it. Of course, we're talking about making allowance for being relaxed and being professional. But the things that you say, the judgments that you make, the decisions that you make, the way how you think should be really the same across the board. So Paul says, be authentic. Your team will see you right through it and never trust you. That is such an important point, Paul, because when you're not authentic, you're going to slip up. Pretending takes work, my friends. Pretending is work. And no matter how carefully you craft that pretend mode, no matter how carefully you craft this new persona, this new character, you're going to slip up, especially under pressure. And everyone knows that if you're a leader, pressure is going to come, challenges are going to come, and that's when you're going to really show who you are, right? Your character, your true character shows when you're under pressure. Kiana says, I like that you shared self-awareness is a key component to define your leadership. Let me tell you something, Kiana. It is so important. And the person who you are today, Kiana and others on the call, may not be the person you are next year, right? So what you discover about yourself today fits today's mold, today's environment, today's leadership space. It may not fit the space next year. So constantly, having an emotional quotient, having that conversation with self is important. 2019 leadership, as I've said many times here on the live, 2019 leadership is not the same leadership for 2020 or 2021. And we don't know right now what 2022 leadership is going to call for, require. And this is why it's so important to be authentic, to be yourself, because you have to adapt your style, your authentic style, to the situation you find yourself in. First, we were all in brick and mortar, and we were building buildings, and we were, acquiring real estate and expanding, as business owners to bigger and bigger and bigger spaces. Now we've shrunk all the way down and having to learn how to work with hybrid teams and remote teams. So it is very important that you're self-aware as a leader to say, what skills do I need right now to lead in this moment? Felix says, authentic leaders create an organizational climate of commitment, knowledge sharing, job satisfaction, greater work engagement, high performance, and productivity. And let me just say something to that point. I would want to agree with you, Felix, but not just because you're an authentic leader is why you would do that. You will do that if that's the kind of leader you are. So being authentic as a leader means being real, being true to you. But who are you? What are your values? Because I can be an authentic leader, but my values are totally different from another authentic leader, right? So it still comes down to, who am I? What are my values? And what do I want to share and have as my non-negotiables, right? My non-negotiable values is what's going to drive my decision making. Roger says, I am leading to improve other lives. God has been with me every step of the way. That's awesome. It sounds like you are a person, Roger, of faith. And so part of your authenticity will be that you are carrying your faith into the marketplace. And so if you guys have any other comments, drop that in the feed or any questions. I'm going to be wrapping it up in the next 2 minutes. But for me, again, the first point I want to say is authenticity requires courage. If you're going to be a true authentic leader, it doesn't mean that you're going to be popular or your opinions will be popular or your viewpoints will be popular, but you will be real and you'll be real with yourself. And the people who you attract will be people who like your style. And this is why it's so important that you don't pretend to be someone you're not, because, as someone said earlier, your team will see right through you. So if you are watching this show and it is between 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern or 2 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern, you are watching live. But if you're watching any other time outside of that, you are team replay. So you can still leave your questions. Do hashtag team replay and ask your questions and leave your comments. And for those of you on Facebook, thank you for tuning in, Roger and Angulan, and on those of you on YouTube as well. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in. And in the feed as well, let me know if there are any particular topics that you'd like me to cover on these weekly lives. I'm going to be having another live this Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The topic is going to be purpose-centered leadership. I'm bringing on a CEO who is a person who puts purpose really as part of his business model. So I'm going to be interviewing him and asking him, how is he incorporating a larger purpose outside of money and outside of his company into his business model? So stay tuned for that. I will make sure I announce it ahead of time. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And like I said, if you have any questions, just leave it in a comment. Thank you, Barbara, for tuning in. And thank you, Jennifer. And thank you guys for watching each and every week. Take care and God bless.